Welcome to the PIO Podcast, a place for all things public information related for police, fire, EMS, and local government. An open forum to learn, grow, and develop your public information skills. Your host, Robert Tornabene, is a public information officer with over 10 years in the field and 27 years of law enforcement background. In each episode, we will explore different aspects of the public information officer profession. So sit back and enjoy this episode.
Good morning. Today on the PIO Podcast, we have Captain Adam Myrick from the Lexington County Sheriff's Office. Adam, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. This is great. Been looking forward to this, and I'm glad to be here.
So, Adam, Lexington County is a pretty large county in South Carolina, and it's got about 750 square miles of responsibility for you guys. It's urban, suburban, rural communities. How does the Sheriff's Office handle those challenges that come out of that makeup?
It is a very diverse county in terms of different pockets throughout the county, and right at 300,000 people. You're right, it's a good mix of rural, urban, and suburban. So the way that we have it split or sectioned off is really along those same lines. We have a north region, a west region, and a south region. And that north region is largely urban. It is right across from Columbia, parts of it. And so you look across the river and you can see the very urban part of downtown Columbia, which of course is the state capital and the home of the flagship University of South Carolina. And then the more suburban feel landscape, if you will, of Lexington County is in our west region. And then south region is that more rural county, which is still very agricultural, and rural just encapsulates that part of our county very well. So the way the sheriff set it up initially when he came into office right at 6 years ago, is he appointed region commanders over each region. And those regions were in place under previous administrations, but obviously he brought in some new region commanders, appointed them. And the way he phrases it is he says, I want you to basically be a small town police chief. I want you to know everything that's going on in your region. I want the businesses to know you to know them, the residents, the homeowners association groups, the crime watch groups. I want you to be that, for lack of a better term, a small town police chief, have that same feel and that same rapport with your region and the communities within your region. So that is an approach that for 6 years now has worked very well. Two of those three region commanders, who were appointed in 2015 are still there. Another one was the lieutenant at that time and has since been promoted to that region commander. So she has done a great job of carrying on that field. And that approach has worked well for us over the course of Sheriff Coon's 6-year administration thus far.
So how has that worked into the PIO end of it? Now, I know you're the primary, but do you have PIOs in each one of those districts?
No, I am all county-wide PIO in terms of the law enforcement, in terms of the sheriff's office. So I have one person who reports directly to me. Michelle Profit is our digital communications coordinator. She is in a professional staff position. She has previous law enforcement experience, though, in a similar role, a media relations, public information role with a county sheriff's office in Florida in the Tampa, St. Pete area. So she comes to this position with just a wide array of branding background, graphic design, obviously media relations as well. So she's been incredible. She's been with us for about 2 years in that position. So we're two. And right now we're very fortunate to have an intern. Carly Hatchell from Newberry College has come in. She's produced and edited, shot largely 3 videos that we've rolled out as part of our current ongoing recruiting campaign. And we have more video projects lined up for her. She's very passionate about videos. She's the first intern we've ever had. So here in the PIO unit. So it has been great, but yeah, there's only 2 of us. So to cover a nearly 600 person organization, to cover the wide landscape that we cover, to cover the very diverse audiences we cover, we stay very busy. And I thank goodness for Michelle, because she is so good at that personal interaction on social. And I think we make a pretty good team, a two-headed monster, we like to say.
Very good. You're a recovering journalist then, correct? in
Yeah,
a
I
sense?
am. I've been clean. Yes, I've been clean since 2004, left the business in February 2004, 17 years ago. I was fortunate enough to do a little bit of everything in about 9 years. Worked in a local newspaper newsroom, radio, also television, and had a great time. Ended up in the business in Dallas, and I'm South Carolina born and bred. My wife and I did 4 years in Dallas, and we said, you know what, let's move back to South Carolina, start the family. And that's when I jumped over to the other side of the news and became a public information officer. Was with one of South Carolina's largest state government agencies at that time, and that's where I cut my PIO teeth. And I have never regretted it. Everybody always asks, do you miss it? And the answer is absolutely not. On all of the 13 holidays I get, I never miss it. And I try to tell people all the time, the water's great over here on the proverbial dark side, so come on over.
That's become a fairly common thing now to see more and more journalists moving into the public service side of PIOs. It's fairly common now.
Yeah, it is. And I was just having a conversation a couple of days ago and had someone say, hey, I'm kind of thinking about it. This is someone who's in television now. And the individual said, so, do you still get that adrenaline kick? Because I love breaking news. And I said, well, yeah, we have that. We do that. So we get that adrenaline kick and we get that rush of going out to a scene. It's really the same thing. And especially with the paradigm and the system and the mindset we have and what Sheriff Kuhn has allowed us to do here in this unit, which is go out and cover the stuff and report the information to our audience and share that information with them in a new, very newsy feel with a very newsy feel to it. So yeah, it's something that is, I think, really good because you still do get that fix, you get that adrenaline rush, and it's no wonder that people want to come do it because you're going to make, I think, generally, you're going to make a little more money, maybe not a lot, but you're going to have a little more sanity and a little more security, I think, in a lot of situations.
Right. I want to go back to the intern that you guys hired, or I should say, is that a paid or is it an unpaid intern?
It's unpaid. She is getting college credit, of course, as she's a senior. She's wrapping up. She'll graduate in December of 21. So, but she's having a great time. It's been really fun to see somebody young come in and you kind of go, well, we've never done this, had an intern. How is this going to work? Well, she said, I love video. I love to edit. And I said, you're in the right place because we love video here in this unit. And the sheriff loves video. Our audience loves video. So we've just let her run on that. And for school credit and for the fun and experience of it, she seems to be having a good time so far.
That's a great way to not only build up your resources, but also allows you to, expand on the stuff that you individually couldn't do, or your social media person, your digital person couldn't do. What a great way to do it, to partner with a college and bring in an intern. That's awesome.
It's been great. We've, again, been making it up a little bit as we go along because she is the first, but I can guarantee you 3 or 4 weeks into this thing, I can already say with certainty she won't hopefully be the last because we have it's been very beneficial and we've had a great time having her here too.
Excellent. So Adam, you are an instructor for the Media and Public Relations course offered by FBI Leader, correct?
That's right.
So how did that come about, and why do you think that course particularly is important for PIOs to take?
I was very blessed to be in the right place at the right time with the great Judy Powell, who really is the grand dame of that course for FBI LEDA. It's her baby. She loves it, and rightfully so, because she has developed a tremendous project there and has just taught so many wonderful PIOs and equipped so many agencies around the country with that product. And I actually spoke at NIOA, the 2018 conference. I spoke on the first day. Judy had done, or the first full day. Judy had done that Sunday opening session. That's the full day.
Right. I was there.
Okay. Yeah. So the day Judy did that, I spoke on Monday, I guess it was middle of the day. Judy came up to me during dinner, I think the next night, swings by my table and says, hey, I enjoyed your presentation. Go see Mark Clark, who's the COO of FBI LEDA tomorrow. He was there as a vendor and in the exhibit area, at their FBI leaders table, and said, I think you'd make a good instructor. So I said, awesome. So I go and talk to Mark, and then several months later, they finally had enough classes and had an opportunity for me to join. And I've been doing it now for going on 2 years, and I've had just a tremendous experience doing it. I love it. It is so incredible. I love traveling and doing it. The reason I think it's great, as you asked, is I think it is a time for PIOs to get together with other PIOs, to sit there and go, well, what do you do? Okay, how does it work in your community? What kind of microphone do you have? I mean, we drill down because it gives us that opportunity to talk equipment and software and apps and other gear, talk about how you write, how do you disseminate, how are you packaging content, are you trying this with your media outlets, all that sort of thing. So the networking just might be the most beneficial thing, but it's also the way the class is structured is it's 4.5 days, almost of a boot camp type thing. It's very practical, and you're going to leave there with some tips. And even if you've been doing this for 10 years and you love it, or you were almost voluntold to go to the course, you happen to be walking down the wrong hallway on the wrong day, and you got tapped on the shoulder and told, hey, guess what? You're the PIO. There's something there for that person as well. So the past 2 classes I've done, we still have a group text. They're kind enough to include me, the old instructor, in there, and we exchange ideas. Got something a couple of days ago. Have you guys seen this about this new microphone coming out? It's real obscure, but Robert, I think that's the key, because as PIOs, we're a little bit weird, so we have to stick together. We got to stick together.
You know what? And I agree. We have to. And not only that, but the thing that I took out of this course when I took it just about 2 years ago, was I've been through a bunch of other quote unquote PIO courses, and they were mostly local. There was one national. There was one guy going around doing national stuff, and there was really nothing I got out of that course that I thought was worthwhile. Walking away after 4.5 days with this class, and I had Sarah Connolly teach our class, and it just, you walked away with feeling like I've been empowered. I have resources if I need to lean on people, and I have a lot of other tools in my toolkit that I didn't have before. And I having gone through tons of training as a law enforcement officer for 27 years, I felt more prepared for doing that job and doing the job as a PIO than I had ever been prepared by many of the other courses I'd been through over my career.
Wow. That's wonderful to hear, Robert. And if you'll allow me, one more plug for the course that I think sets it apart from many other sessions and trainings and gatherings, as you just referenced, is almost virtually every course I've taught or been a part of as an observer to get ready to go be an instructor. At the end of the course on Friday afternoon, about lunchtime, think of every other conference you go to. What are you trying to do? Everybody's trying to get out of there. They're packed up and they're ready to go. Almost without fail, at the end of an FBI LEDA Master's Media and Public Relations course, everybody is sticking around talking. Nobody leaves because they've had such fun. They bonded over the week, and you're still standing around chatting and talking for 30 or 40 minutes after the official end of the class. I think that says how effective and how special it is.
I agree with you. And like you said, I still interact with the other PIOs that I went through the course with, that our agency hosted. So believe me, we're still texting back and forth, and we still call each other for things. And it definitely, the course is phenomenal. And if anybody ever gets a chance to take the Media Public Relations, which is a precursor for the Master PIO course, which usually is taught by Judy, you've got to take both, and they are both worthwhile courses. Absolutely.
Yeah, good to hear. I agree.
All right, Adam, I'm going to jump into this next one. You were featured in the Municipal Association of South Carolina's bulletin in January 2018. The title of the article was Pick the Right Spokesperson and Other Tips. I noted you made comments, both you and Director Johnson, who was the PIO, I believe, from the city of North Charleston, about the no comment comment. Can you elaborate on that?
We all know this as PIOs, but it bears repeating. And I think it also bears diving into a little bit, Robert. And that is, when you say no comment, you appear like you're hiding something or you appear like you're guilty. So that's why we never say no comment. That's why we have to advise the bosses at our agencies. We can't just not comment on this. And maybe that extends to not only not saying no comment verbally, but also not responding, because that in and of itself can come across the same way as the actual words no comment. So what we were talking about there in that session with some other municipal government leaders, it was a roundtable session, was there are ways to say no comment without no comment. And Brad Phillips, Mr. Media Trainer, Mr. Media Training, I can't remember his exact moniker, but I have to give him a tip of the hat on this one, because he says there are ways to say no comment without saying no comment. And what we do here at the Lexington County Sheriff's Office is we say we might not say anything, but we're never going to say no comment. So for instance, we might say, right now, that's a part of our investigation and some information that we have to protect as our work continues on that case. Now, what have we said? Well, we really haven't said anything, but at least we haven't said no comment, because in this day and age, with law enforcement and community relations in a different spot than perhaps they've ever been, or at least in a very long time and on a wide scale basis across the country, we just can't say no comment. It looks like we're hiding something. It looks like we're not being forthright and transparent with our community. We certainly don't want that. So that's really where that came from. And I advise PIOs all the time, come up with ways that, and some statements like that you can put in your back pocket that really say where you are, say where things are in a particular phase or stage of your work on an investigation. But just, you can't say no comment. At least say something, because you and I both know, Robert, there's nothing worse than no comment. And there's also nothing worse than we didn't hear back from officials with XYZ agency, or we're still waiting on them to call us back. That's a tough thing to hear or read.
I remember I was in a meeting with some regional mayors, and somebody said, well, how do you handle when the media calls? And one of the mayors from a jurisdiction a couple over from me said, we just don't call them back. And I'm thinking, that's horrible. I mean, number one is you're giving them an opportunity to say whatever they want then. But at the same time, you're also telling them that you don't really care of what's going to come out of the story. They're going to just put whatever they can. They're going to talk to whoever else they can talk to. And that's going to result in maybe misinformation, fabricated information completely, and it's going to put your agency in a completely poor light, just overall.
Yeah, it does. And Robert, that brings to mind what I often see out there, and that is agencies just not ever sending a PIO to a scene of a major incident. So when reporters show up at the scene of that major incident, you and I have been in this business, we know how that's going to work. And anybody who's watched the news knows how this is going to work. They're going to talk to someone.
Right.
So do you want them talking to the neighbor down the street who might be completely off base with what his or her comments are, or might, worse, even compromise your investigation? Probably not. That's why I say you got to get out to a scene and you got to tell your story before the neighbors do. And they're still going to talk to the neighbors, but at least they've heard from the agency and they've heard from that credible, authoritative source who responded to the incident.
And they're most likely going to put that person that they spoke to, the spokesperson for the agency, that's going to be your soundbite in most cases.
Yes.
The absence of you is going to end up being the person down the street, or the person they happen to be walking by and said, I saw him do it. And, and then it's down the tubes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about preparing for the press interview. What should the PIO be thinking about?
First and foremost, when you get a media request, here's what I do. I think, do we want to speak to this outlet's audience? Because that's who ultimately our message should be getting to. And that's who we're talking to. So do we have something to say to the audience of this media outlet? If we do, okay, next step. What are the messages? What do we want to say to the audience of that media outlet's audience, the members of that audience? So I think so often we get that. You referenced it a minute ago, Robert, about the mayors. Well, we just don't call them back. I think sometimes a similar mindset to that is, well, we don't like that reporter, or this reporter wrote this, or we don't like that outlet. Well, the reporter and the outlet isn't your ultimate audience. Your ultimate audience is the readers and the viewers of that media outlet. That's who you can talk to.
And I think that sometimes they lose that big picture of the audience and they're just stuck on the person that wrote the bad story about them before. You're right, 100%. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
So no, I love the back and forth. Yeah, it's just you can't lose sight of that. You have to look at that and go, okay, do we need to talk to this audience? Should we? Is there a benefit to our doing that? Is there something we have to say to them? If there is, then okay, let's go forward. And then just getting a little bit more step by step. I like the 3 message technique. I'm an old simple-minded guy. I like 3 messages. I think they work well. I think the human brain thinks in terms of 3: red, white, and blue. Larry, Moe, and Curly. Red light, yellow light, green light. I mean, the whole world is full of 3s to me.
100%.
3 strikes, you're out in baseball. So first, second, third base, whatever. So I think come up with the 3 messages. You have to come up with some bridging statements, and all of this is things that we do, and we can go into more detail if you want to. But I think first and foremost, what do we have to say? Do we want to say it? And then does it make sense for us to sit down and do this interview? And I'll tell you, Robert, for me, I think a lot of times it does. Some people may laugh at me and say, man, you never met an interview request you didn't like. And that's not true. I think we accept more here than we decline. Now, I'll tell you the kind that we do decline, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and love to hear some feedback from the audience on this too, is when it comes to stats and breaking down data, and here's this report, meaning this report of data and numbers and so forth. A lot of times we're going to stay away from interviewing about numbers. And that's just what we do. And I'm not saying that's right or the only way it could be done, but we just have a philosophy here. Sheriff Coon's thing is, hey, the numbers are what they are. They say what they say. So to get into a back and forth about the numbers sometimes can be pretty tricky. I'd love to hear what you think about it, because for us, we often go, the number of traffic stops 2011 to 2019, I mean, they are what they are. I don't know what we can really jump in and say about it.
I had a chief years ago say to me, don't take numbers, don't take credit for numbers, and don't put numbers out there that you don't expect to get asked questions about, because those numbers can come back to haunt you. If you take credit for a 15% reduction in crime, the next year you're going to end up having a 25% increase, and they're going to say, what did you do between this year and last year? And what failings did you have? Right. So he was always big about not using numbers as a tool to talk to the media. So I agree with you. I don't think talking about numbers are gonna be beneficial, because most cases when they're pulling numbers, when they're looking for those stats, there's a gotcha statement almost in there where they're trying to get some kind of negative out of it so that they can say that there's something that the agency did wrong.
Yes. Yeah. I think you're right on that. And that's why we're often in this profession wise to avoid that. I think providing a statement might help, providing a little bit of context. But for instance, to sit down for a television interview as you head into a sweeps month about a controversial set of stats that the television station has unearthed in going through your annual reports, I would want to sit down and discuss that. with leadership before going forward on it.
I agree 100% with you on that. This kind of falls into this. What are the pitfalls a PIO needs to look for prior to going into that interview? What are the things that they get themselves into trouble with?
I think the primary thing is you have to set expectations on the part of the reporter and understand I'm totally comfortable and can offer you information on this. But if you want to sit me down or sit my chief or sheriff down or some other member of our leadership team down, and we start veering off course, we're not going to be okay with that. And that's it's not going to be productive for you because we're not going to be ready for that. And we'll talk about that. But right now, here's what we're looking at. So I think setting expectations, Judy Powell is great. She calls it fencing the interview and saying, this is what we can cover. This is what we're prepared to go into. And we'll sit down and discuss it with you, explain it to you, provide context to you, in depth. We'll be happy to do that. I think also, here's something, a fun story I always like to recap in my class. And if you've got, look, most interviews these days are over pretty quickly because newsrooms are doing more with less staffing, less budget. They don't have a lot of time. But there are still cases where you may want to do this. If you get the sense that the interview could go on and on and on, I would set, here is a time frame that I have. Here's a 30-minute window of time. Because when I was still somewhat of a baby PIO, I sat down for a sweeps piece with a television station, and I didn't set that end time. And I sat there for an hour and a half and was grilled about stats and all this kind of stuff. And it was pretty tough. So I'm sitting there in it and I'm going, well, I never said there was an end time. And how am I going to end this? Because we're in a conference room, the cameras are rolling. And so I always like to say, yeah, at least say, hey, we can do 30 minutes, 45 minutes. But yeah, if you don't, you might be on the hook for a long time. And
it's okay to set parameters and expectations for them because they will set expectations for you as well. And that's okay. And people always say, well, I want the questions up front. Sometimes you can ask for those. Don't be afraid to ask for those questions. It's good to get, because then at least you have an idea of where they're going. They may be afraid to send you those questions. I know some reporters don't like the email questions because they want to be in that live, I gotcha on that question moment. They want to see your reaction to it. But if you have a good rapport with a reporter, most of them, especially, and I've done this in the past, I've sat down with all my reporters in my area and got to know their type and their style of reporting and what they do. And of course, there's always the investigative journalists that are out there that they won't ever sit down with you because their job is to try and dig up dirt on anything that their storyline is out. I won't work with those guys in the sense where I'm going to just sit down with them blindly. I'm going to be very limited. I'm only talking about this topic. You only have 15 minutes. I have something else I have to do at that point.
Yeah, I think there's that's good fencing. That's good expectation setting, if you will, a lack of a more concise phrase. But here's another pitfall, Robert, I want to mention, and this is something that is fairly new. So for newer PIOs, they may not have sensed this or been aware of this change. But over the last couple of years, I have gathered in a lot of critical incidents and even some more basic routine stories that the tendency of some television reporters now is to ask questions with a personal leaning to them. And what by that, I mean, they're asking what you as the spokesperson for the agency think about a certain response, or have you ever seen anything like this? They're looking for a more personal response. Right. And that's really happened over the last 2, maybe 3 years, but just the last few years. And newer PIOs need to be careful about that because if you're new to this, you're just going to think because the question's answered or asked, you have to answer it in the way it's been asked, which the more seasoned spokesperson is trained, of course, to not do that. So that's a pitfall I would really warn newer PIOs about, to be careful about anything that has the word you in it, meaning you, the individual, or opinion or thought or your experience, those kind of words and phrases should be, hey, wait a minute, this is getting off track and I need to bring everything back. And of course, the reason is, hey, who is really entitled to have an opinion at a law enforcement agency? The chief or the sheriff, and that's
the elected or appointed official. Exactly.
There you go. The rest of us, we're just here to fall in line with that message and that leadership and share what is critical for our communities to know.
Absolutely. So, Adam, what do you think the greatest challenge for a public information officer is?
When it comes to challenges, I think it's all about how do we balance the time and the demands that we have on us as people, not just as employees, but as people. Being a PIO is what I call a Hotel California job. You can check out, but you never really leave. You're never really off. You can try to be off, but other than maybe when you go offshore and you don't have a phone, or maybe if you go to Disney World and you just leave the phone in the room and you don't take it to Space Mountain. Other than that, you're pretty much on call. I'm speaking for me, at least, and that's probably a character flaw on my part. But we have to balance our time, both personally and professionally. I was thinking of this the other day, Robert. This is one of these things that just makes you go, huh? How did we do this? Think 10 years ago, before social media was really a mainstream thing. And we were busy then. We had so many duties and responsibilities 10 years ago without social. And now we have social on top of that. Now, many of us are not only dealing with that, but we're dealing with producing our own content and disseminating that and curating content. I don't know. I really don't know how we do it, but all of this stuff continues to be thrust upon us. And I think we have to balance it at the office, at headquarters, wherever we may work on a scene. And then we have to remember that we still are people and we hopefully have lives outside of work and out of the uniform and away from the office. And I think that's a tremendous thing that we have to be mindful of. But that gets back, Robert, to why I think it's important for us to network and for us to stick together, because nobody really is like a PIO. We have to know everything about our agencies. I mean, if you're on K9, okay, you know K9, but we got to know all of it. Now, the depth of knowledge might be an inch deep, but we still have to cover the whole pond of knowledge, if you will.
I agree. And Adam, I really like how you put into context the fact that you need to take care of yourself and you need to take time away. It's important to do that. You need to set a boundary if it's possible. We can get burned out very easily. Yeah. And especially if it's a one or two person operation, that one man and one woman operations are just, they're overburdened. Like you said, social, brand awareness, press releases, phone calls from journalists in the middle of the night, heading out to scenes. It can be very tough on an individual at any time of the year, and add in any family issues that are going on personally with you, that even adds more stress.
Yeah, it's so intense, and we just have to be careful on both fronts, because if you're right, if we don't watch it and monitor ourselves, burnout is real. And fallout from burnout is also very real.
Yeah, there have been a few PIOs that have had the fallout right during a press conference, or when they make that wrong mistake because they're stressed and they haven't relaxed, and next thing you know, it's that personal thing comes in, and there's negative impact on the agency because of that. And I'm not talking about necessarily a PIO from a law enforcement agency or a fire agency, just any public relations agency that may handle that, that public side for an organization.
Well, I was going to say the networking for our own mental health and therefore our own professional viability on a scene in the midst of a response is so key, not just so we can pick up a phone and rant and rave to a PIO several states away, which is fine. And sometimes we need to do that. But it also is important because we might need that PIO who is a couple of counties away to come over and just say, hey, I'm on day 3. I feel myself becoming error prone. I feel myself absolutely at the end. And can you just sit on Facebook and respond to these comments, please? and having that network of support that you can lean on and say, can you come help me do this? Because I'm done. And we're so type A, we're so driven, we don't recognize that. But yeah, that's why I think the networking, not only so we can call them and rant and go crazy and unload on them and vent, but also so we could get some practical help. That's why it's key, because only a PIO knows how to come in and sit down and monitor social and respond to Facebook comments.
Absolutely. I agree.
I mean, other people can do it, but it's nice to be able to have someone who speaks your language, who, hey, I've seen your work. I know how you do this. Can you come help me? Because I'm on day 4 of this and I'm just about to
absolutely necessary. I agree with you. All right, we're going to lighten this up a little bit. Great comments, Adam. I appreciate it. Some rapid fire questions. So you ready?
I am ready. Let's do it.
Last good book that you've read?
I just finished up about 2 weeks ago a book called Spiritual Leadership. It's by a son and father duo named Henry and Richard Blackaby, and it was amazing. One of the best leadership books I've ever read. Took me forever, but loved it. All about servant leadership, and just learned a lot in that book. I recommend it.
Binge-worthy TV show?
See, so often when somebody asks this, they think they're going to come up with some hot new show or some show that they missed that's still somewhat new. Yeah, I'm going to go really funny on this one and a little bit crazy. I am a fan of the old primetime soap opera Dallas, and I still binge that show. I still watch it because it's so entertaining to me. And so I wanted to throw a curveball to everybody and just say I binge a show that hasn't really been on the air in 30 years.
That's okay. That's why we're asking the question. Bourbon, scotch, or beer?
I'm a teetotaler, Robert. I have no idea. I guess if I had to, I'd discount beer and go bourbon because they always drink bourbon on Dallas. So I'll tie it to my last response.
There you go. Very good. Adam, do you have a mantra?
Talk through the media more than you talk to the media.
I like that. That's a good one. Very good. If you could do anything, I would blank.
Take about 6 weeks off and go catch a game at every single Major League Baseball ballpark.
That is something that I'm in the process of doing.
Really?
I've hit about 15. My goal is to hit them all. But there's some I have not gotten to Fenway. That's my dream.
Yeah.
That's a dream stadium to get to. Yeah. But I've hit 15. I've got a lot more to go.
What's your favorite of the 15, if I may ask you?
See, I'm a biased guy. Because I'm a Chicago White Sox fan.
Okay.
But I'm a Chicago fan in heart, and Wrigley Field to me is the best park in the world to have a fan experience.
Yeah.
Because it's so tight and it's so friendly in itself that that's why it got the nickname Friendly Confines, is because it's that kind of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt rapid fire. I was just fascinated by your journey.
No, that's okay. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Flying, a la Superman.
I like that. Okay. One person, dead or alive, you'd want to meet?
Ooh, I don't want to go too obscure on this one, but I almost always go to this one, and that's Pete Roselle, who is the former commissioner of the National Football League. He was commissioner from 1960 to 1989, I believe. And Pete Roselle created the modern NFL. He is the father of the modern NFL. And the NFL is one of the largest, most successful brands on the planet. And it's because of Pete Roselle. When Pete Roselle took over, the NFL was far less popular than college football. It trailed Major League Baseball by miles. And it has long since passed both of them in popularity, and that's because of Pete Roselle. I'd love to sit down and just ask him how you did that, how you completely revamped what was kind of this largely irrelevant league at the time, and how you work for people who also hire you, how you discipline people who also hire you. Because the NFL commissioner is hired by the owners, yet he or she then has the ability to discipline the owners who hired him. It's a fascinating leadership situation. So from that standpoint, and the branding and the whole creation, I'd love to sit down and just say how you did that.
All right, couple things for the final thoughts. Is there anything else you'd like to share about being a PIO or anything at all?
Robert, I am super passionate about writing. That's why I got into the media when I did now a long, long time ago. That's why really my favorite part about, tied for my favorite part about being a PIO. And I just hope that we can all become better writers as PIOs. Because now with social media, we have to write. We got to write a post. I mean, let's have rich content, let's have video, and let's have graphics, and let's make it all look great, branding and all that. But we still have to write. We have to write in a way that can be understood and write in a way that gets our message across and that people can easily digest and comprehend a lot of times during a very stressful moment. So I am just passionate about writing, and I hope we as PIOs can all within ourselves commit to become better writers and just write tightly. And I know writing is not necessarily fun for a lot of people, but I think it's so important to our job.
Great final thought. Adam, how can people get a hold of you, interact with you, and anything that you have, I'll end up putting in the show notes, but how can they reach out to you if they want to get more information about how you do things and what you do?
Well, we first of all would love to have you follow us at LCSD_news. That's LCSD_news on Twitter, Lexington Sheriff on Facebook. That's the agency stuff. But for me, you can pretty much find me as Adam the PIO on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. That's Adam the PIO. When you have a crazy last name, it's sometimes better to lose that last name. So hence the handle on all those is Adam the PIO.
Adam, that's awesome. Thank you very much. I will put all that information in the show notes. I appreciate you coming on the show today, Adam. Thank you very much. This is Adam Myrick from the Lexington County Sheriff's Office in South Carolina. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you so much, Robert.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to contact the show, please email us at thepiopodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows reviews, please give us a review. We appreciate any review, good or bad. It helps us improve on each episode. Until next time, be safe.